The final drum beat echoes. Agubia must choose, submit to the shadows or fight for the soul of the kingdom. Agubia was preparing for a festival, the festival of the ancestors, meant to honor the spirits and the kings of old. But it was a mockery now. Ogbonnaya had turned it into a display of his own power. Drummers played, not for joy, but fear. Dancers smiled with trembling lips, and around the palace, soldiers roamed like hungry dogs. But in the crowd was a shadow, a tall man in brown hood, horns hidden beneath clothes, a walking stick that clicked against the cobblestones like thunder. It was Eze. Beside him, Nneka wore the robes of a forest priestess. No one suspected them, not yet, but in the allies, loyal eyes watched. Old warriors, market mothers, orphans, all waiting for the sign. Eze raised 2 fingers to his lips and they moved. Back in the rebel camp, far outside the capital, chaos was stirring. Chisom, a loyal hunter who had once pledged loyalty to Eze, snuck into the tent of the scroll keeper and stole a map, the blueprint to the palace under halls. When caught, he confessed under tears. I didn't mean to. Ogbonnaya promised my family would leave. He said he'd spare them if I gave him the plan. Nneka's heart dropped. She had trusted him, and now their entrance was exposed. The rebellion had to act fast or fall before it began. She gathered the elders. We strike tonight. Eze reached the palace walls through the underground passage once used by the original kings. The air stank of blood and old magic. He stood before the ancestral throne. It was empty but not quiet. From the shadows, the rot emerged, its cloak whispering like leaves in fire. You do not belong here. I was born here, Eze replied. The rot laughed, a terrible sound. Then you were born to die here. It lunged, blade in hand. Eze met it, horned head, crashing against its skull. Sparks flew. Their fight cracked the stones. But the rot was not alone. 3 shadows rose from the walls, echoes of past kings, twisted by Ogbonnaya's blood magic. Eze faltered until Nneka entered. She raised her arms, and from her voice came the forest cry. The shadows screamed and vanished. After the battle, Nneka collapsed near the sacred basin. The spirits came again, this time not as whispers but as a storm. You have awakened the full root. She saw a woman in the vision, skin like ours, eyes fierce, hair like curled vines. Your mother, the spirit said, was one of us. Nneka gasped, but she was a market woman. She was a guardian before she fell in love with a man of Agubia. To protect you, she gave up her power, but you carried it still. That is why the mark chose you. Her blood was not only royal, it was ancient, now awakened. The dawn approached. The rebels surrounded Agubia. The people rose in secret. Drums returned, not of war but of truth. 1,000 feet moved in rhythm. Fires were lit. Inside the palace, Ogbonnaya stood in the highest tower with the cost on. He watched the city stare. He laughed, but behind him a whisper came. You were never king. He turned. Eze stood in the doorway, bathed in moonlight and shadow, horns glowing. Ogbonnaya raised the cost on, and Nneka stepped in. We end this together. The throne room was a storm of silence. Torches flickered like frightened hearts. Ogbonnaya raised the cost on above his head. Its surface now cracked, oozing black smoke. You don't know what this on is, he hissed. It's not just a symbol, it's a god. Eze stepped forward. Then let your god face mine. He dropped his cloak. The horns on his head gleamed, not forged, but born. Ogbonnaya blew the horn. A wail tore through the palace. The walls bled. Statues cracked. From the floor, shadow beasts emerged, written, screeching, wearing the faces of men Eze had once known. Eze charged. His staff, cut from the heart tree, glowed. He struck one beast down, then another, but he kept coming. From the hallway, rebels burst in. Behind them, Nneka began chanting. Nneka's veins burned. The old magic within her was unraveling. Every word she spoke pulled more power from her soul. The spirits warned her, to bind the urn, one must pay the price. She saw it, her death, her blood staining the same ground her mother once died upon. But Eze was being overwhelmed. The urn had to be stopped. Nneka raised her arms and chanted the forbidden verse. A great wind blasted through the palace. Ogbonnaya screamed. The cursed urn cracked in his hand, then exploded in flame. The shadows disappeared. Ogbonnaya dropped to his knees, weeping blood. Eze walked towards him. Ogbonnaya looked up, face ruined by smoke and shame. "You were always meant to die poor in the forest." He spat. Eze replied softly, "Better to die a goat in truth than a king of lies." He turned his back. The rebels tied Ogbonnaya in chains, fashioned from the roots of the sacred grove. His punishment would not be death, but memory. He would live to see the kingdom he tried to destroy rise without him. At sunrise, the horns of Agubia sounded, not in fear but in freedom. The people gathered at the palace steps. Eze stepped forward, wearing not a crown but a woven headband of leaves and vines. "I am not your king," he said. "I am your servant. This land belongs to the people and to the forest that feeds us." Cheers erupted. Children threw petals. Drummers danced. The goat king had returned, not as a monster but a legend. Later that night, Eze sat beneath the moon, staring at the empty space beside him. Nneka was gone. She had vanished after the battle into the woods like her mother before her, but her spirit lingered in the wind, in the trees, in the newborn flowers that bloomed from the blood-soaked earth. Years passed. Eze ruled not from the throne but among the people. He taught, he planted, he protected, and when he finally passed into the spirit world, the trees whispered his name. Eze, the goat king, the old one who loved his people. And deep in the forest, when the moon is full, some say you can still hear him walking, staff in hand, heart still watching. The end.